I didn't know that locking a simple steel gate on a quiet lakeside morning would end the reign of an HOA president who had ruled an entire neighborhood through fear for more than a decade. 6 weeks after I bought that land, she was standing outside my gate screaming in front of television cameras, insisting the road belonged to her community. What she didn't know was that the gate she was losing her mind over was about to expose everything she'd spent years hiding. Let me take you back to the beginning, before the cameras, before the police lights, before I realized I was standing in the crosshairs of someone who didn't know how to lose. When I bought the property, all I wanted was quiet. I'd spent 15 years as a bridge construction engineer, living on coffee deadlines and stress headaches that never really went away. One afternoon, my doctor looked at my chart, then at me, and told me my blood pressure wasn't a warning anymore, it was a countdown. That was the moment I decided I was done. I found a 12-acre piece of farmland sitting right on Cedar Lake, just outside a development called Pinewood Estates. The land had been in the same family since the early 1950s. No HOA, no covenants, no restrictions. Just trees, water, and an old gravel lane called Crawford Lane that led from the highway straight to the property. I bought it, packed my things, and for the first time in years, I slept through the night. The first Saturday after I moved in, I was repainting an old wooden fence near the front of the property. The air smelled like wet grass and lake water, and for a brief moment I remember thinking, this is it. This is what peace feels like. Then I heard tires crunching on gravel. A white Cadillac Escalade rolled up and stopped just outside my gate. A woman stepped out like she owned the ground beneath her feet. Mid-50s designer dress, sunglasses pushed up into perfectly styled hair clipboard tucked against her chest like a shield. She didn't wave. She didn't knock. She just walked straight onto my property. I set down my paintbrush and watched her approach. "Daniel Crawford," she said, not a question, but a statement. "I'm Sandra Thornton, president of the Pinewood Estates Homeowners Association. We need to discuss your violations." She shoved a paper toward me. HOA violation notice. Apparently my fence was too tall. The fine was $750 with daily penalties after 2 weeks. I read it twice, then looked back at her. "I'm not part of your HOA," I said calmly. "This property isn't either." Her smile didn't move, but something behind her eyes hardened. "Every property within a certain radius falls under our jurisdiction," she said. "I suggest you review your purchase agreement." I already had. I'd pulled every deed survey and zoning record before signing anything. My land predated her HOA by more than half a century. No covenants, no authority. Nothing tying me to her rules. "This land existed decades before your HOA," I told her. "You don't have any authority here." For the first time, her confidence wavered. Just a flicker. But I saw it. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, sharp, floral, aggressive. "You know that road you use?" she said quietly. "Crawford Lane. It runs through HOA territory. I can restrict access whenever I choose." Something about the way she said it made my stomach tighten. "That road is private," I replied. "It's part of this property's deed." She glanced past me toward the lake. Her eyes lingered there longer than they should have, not casually but hungrily. "What a waste," she muttered. "Do you know someone offered over $1 million for this land last year?" Then she turned and walked back to her SUV, stopping just long enough to look at me over her shoulder. "People who make things difficult for this community tend to regret it," she said. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I checked my security cameras. At 3:47 a.m., a vehicle with its plate partially covered pulled up to my gate. A figure stepped out and spray-painted 2 words across the wood: "Sell or suffer." I stood there staring at it, my chest tight, realizing this wasn't about fence height or HOA paperwork. Sandra Thornton wanted something from my land, and intimidation was just her opening move. Over the next few days I started digging. County records confirmed what I already knew: my land was well outside the HOA boundary. Crawford Lane was mine. Private, legal, recorded since 1952. But something else caught my attention. Several properties along the lake had changed hands in recent years, all purchased by something called the Thornton Family Trust. That's when I met Harold Jennings. Harold was in his 70s, lived at the edge of Pinewood Estates, and according to the local hardware store clerk, he was the only person who'd ever openly criticized Sandra Thornton and survived it. When I told him who I was, he just nodded. "So you're the one she's trying to bully now," he said. "Come inside." His living room was filled with boxes of documents. He laid them out on the table one by one. "She's been HOA president for 11 years, he said. "In that time, 14 families have been forced to sell. Always the same pattern. Minor violations escalating fines, liens. Eventually, people break." He showed me spreadsheets he'd kept. Average loss per family, over 20% below market value. Then he pulled out a map and traced his finger along the lakefront. 3 properties owned by the Thornton Family Trust. One gap in the middle. My land. That was the moment it clicked. My property wasn't just a farm, it was the missing piece. The pressure escalated fast. A law firm sent me a letter demanding I grant permanent access to Crawford Lane. Another message arrived anonymously containing a development contract. A $4.2 million resort project contingent on acquiring my land. I remember sitting alone in my kitchen that night, lights off, staring at the lake through the window. For the first time, doubt crept in. What if I was wrong? What if I was in over my head? I wasn't a lawyer. I wasn't a politician. I was just a tired engineer who wanted some peace. There was a moment, a real one, where I considered selling, walking away, letting someone else deal with her. Then everything changed. I got a text telling me to meet at a small cafe. When I arrived, a young woman sat across from me, hands shaking. "My name is Nancy," she said. "I'm Sandra Thornton's daughter." She slid a USB drive across the table. "I'm the HOA accountant," she whispered, "and I can't watch her destroy another family." On that drive were 5 years of financial records, fake contractor payments, money siphoned into personal accounts, over $100,000 stolen. As she left, fear etched across her face, I realized something important. This wasn't just about me anymore. I had the gate installed a few days later. 8 feet of reinforced steel cameras covering every angle. I sent formal notices. The road was private. The gate would remain locked. Sandra lost her mind. She called emergency HOA meetings, turned the community against me, accused me of extortion. Lawsuits followed. News articles painted me as a villain. Then at 3:12 a.m. the gate alarm went off. I watched on my phone as 2 men chained the gate to a truck and ripped it out of the ground, sparks flying as they dragged it away. I didn't panic. I downloaded the footage. Faces, vehicle, partial plate. The sheriff found them within a day. They talked. Sandra had paid them in cash. That was the beginning of the end. Investigative reporters got involved. Nancy turned over original ledgers and an audio recording of her mother giving instructions to destroy my gate. The evidence stacked up fast. The final confrontation happened on a foggy morning. Sandra drove down Crawford Lane and stopped at the new gate. When she saw me standing there, something in her snapped. "Open it," she screamed. "I need to get through." "This is private property," I said calmly. She started pacing, yelling, unraveling, admitting things she shouldn't have, and she didn't realize every word was being recorded. When the sheriff arrived, she tried to run. They caught her before she made it 3 steps. As they put her in handcuffs, the crowd that had lived under her rule for years stood silent, phones raised, watching her power vanish in real time. I stood behind the gate as she was driven away, the road finally quiet. The lesson is simple: power built on intimidation always collapses the moment someone refuses to be afraid.